Well, thank you, Matthew. Good morning, I guess, ladies and gentlemen. Many thanks for the invitation at the beginning. Working for the World Economic Forum, we travel quite a lot everywhere in the world, but it's quite a rare opportunity to actually be in Geneva. So it's great to be here. We are based in Cologne, not that far away, but it's really good to be in Geneva too. So I am the lead for oil and gas industry at the World Economic Forum. So first wanted to very briefly will introduce you to the organization. I'm sure many of you heard about this. Not everyone probably exactly know what we do. I think this will be also useful to give a context for what I'm going to say later on. So we are an international organization that helps the industries, the business leaders, work with political leaders and also with other business leaders. These people, meet, we give them a platform to meet, to understand what's really happening, what's happening in their industries, what's happening in other industries, what's happening in different places in the world, and also to give them opportunity to really work together to address some of it. This may have a public format, something like we are doing today here. This may have more private setting, like for example the meeting you can see at the picture. So the forum works with more than 20 different industries. I work with oil and gas industry, and this is a meeting of oil and gas CEOs representing 40% of global oil supply exclusively at this level, with some policymakers and also some experts and civil society representatives. So this is how we work. We meet with them every year in Davos. It was mentioned already today. To give you an idea, this year in Davos we had 900 CEOs of largest global companies for 4 days. And we had 55 heads of states or government, 250 ministers. The remaining 1,000 people were executive board level people. And we meet with them once a year, sometimes bilaterally, more often, of course. And then we work with them and people, basically the top of their organizations throughout the year, to help them understand and address those key issues. So today I'm going to put things back into the global context and will run you through some of those key issues that have been identified as really top of mind for the oil and gas CEOs. So first one is supply and demand imbalances, and then more long-term questions about the demand. I think it's not a surprise that first opening panel today was really about that, very in-depth analysis there. These are things that everyone is really concerned about, thinking, of course, supply-demand imbalances, big impact on prices, so this decides on today's economics of the business. If you want to refer that to the Russia CIS region, obviously, low price means less activity for companies, means less jobs, less capex spent. But it also means for many of those countries, actually, or Russia, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, are energy exporters. So, of course, challenge for them to balance their budgets. When we look more long-term on that, is, there is this geographical shift between non-OECD countries in terms of demand to non-OECD countries. So we see that already in strategies of countries that were mentioned today. So they are looking from the traditional markets, which is Europe, into more, emerging growing markets, which is Asia. And then finally, when we think about the really long term for the demand, particularly for oil, there is a lot of uncertainty how this demand looks like in, 10, 20, 30 years from today, especially when we put it into context of such a long-term character of the oil and gas investments. This gives us an idea how important is that and how little certainty people have about that. So basically, companies need to really navigate this pretty complex environment. Next issue is obvious, and it's related to the environment and climate change challenges. I think the industry now is in the stage that is really trying to understand what was really agreed in Paris, what does it mean on practical terms, and what this will mean for their business models going forward. Of course, this relates back to the demand question too, because climate change policies will shape, to a large extent, demand for oil and for gas. Probably more optimistic for gas long term. Questions about oil, particularly for energy purposes. Now, capital efficiency. On demand side, this is something that is external. No one really controls that. We can only try to understand what's happening, what's going to happen. Likewise, climate change is policy-driven, also feeding back into demand questions. But cost is something that companies can control. And this is what they're trying to address, that have been trying to address that already for at least 2 years, looking internally, but also looking at the industry level, what can be done and how can we work better, basically produce oil cheaper and faster. This has implications for today, of course, but also long term when we again think about the fuel mix changes and competition between fuel sources. Lowering level of average cost for the oil or gas is basically good for this industry long term. So at this graph, you can see a little bit of data. We worked with major companies, with chief engineers, heads of projects, heads of upstream, heads of procurement for like 2 years now. To first understand why so many projects are running upstream, large upstream projects running over budget and over time frame. What's the extent of this? What are the root causes of that, and what can be done about this? So basically what this graphic shows you, and it's more than 100 projects larger than $1 billion in CapEx. In 5 years, the industry spent $400 billion more than was planned. The 3/4 of all large upstream projects exceed budget by an average 50%, and more than half of these projects exceed schedule by more than 35%. So people spend half more than planned and see revenue 35% later. So huge value destruction, a big issue when we take into account economic conditions in the industry we operate now. So recently we've heard that there is reports about the increased efficiency of the operations, lowering cost of production. Big part of this is really related to drop in services prices and equipment prices. And the real question is, how much of these efficiency gains are really structural? How much is kind of seasonal? It's due to low oil price today and lower activity in the industry. And here at this graph, you can see a project. It's a real example of a project that was designed in early 2000s. And basically, same project, if it was designed in 2013, would be 2.5 times more expensive. Exactly same project, exactly same performance, everything is same. So the question is, what has driven the cost up? Of course, part of this increase is related to inflation of services and equipment prices, which we observed till 2014. Now it's lower because of lower activity. But big chunk of it, and our assessment, it's around 70% of this cost increase is related to many different inefficiencies and complexity that is observed when one look at producing oil and gas. There are different reasons for that. Some of them is simply lack of skilled labor force. We'll address that in a second. Some of this is simply complexity. Well, easy oil is finished, as they say. So, everything is deeper, it's more challenging technique. But one of the major sources, and relatively easy to address from technical standpoint, is this practice of going for designing bespoke solutions when it comes to equipment that is being installed by the industry when it comes to oil and gas production. So what the industry does, each major company does it. They take standard solution and they add multiple layers of company and project-related specifications that don't really add value, but they add a lot in terms of cost and schedule. So effectively, every piece of equipment that is being installed, at least by major companies, is a prototype. So no wonder that it's expensive, takes more time, goes over budget. So what can be done about this? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Start going for those bespoke designs. If you really need to add some additional requirements, try to standardize this at the industry level. I will give you an example. I'm not sure how much of you have a little bit of technical background, but for example, a ball valve is a pretty simple piece of equipment, and each company has a different design of this, and normally each project has a different design of a ball valve. Well, there is no competitive advantage what kind of ball valve you use. There is one company operating in one of the African countries. They have 5 projects there. They use 5 different subsea Christmas trees designs. But probably they could use one, probably all operators working in this country could use one. Probably to cover all applications in the world, you will need 200, while today we see like 50,000 or 10 like this. So what needs to happen is a certain kind of standardization of those additional requirements, and the industry level for a piece of equipment that are basic. And this is what we've been trying to help them. There are other opportunities to help them with efficiency, and I will come back to that. I mentioned
because I'm under pressure on time.
Yeah.
Please come back to it very quickly.
3 minutes.
I'd like to have a chance for some questions.
3 minutes. Thank you, Maciej. Human capital is a challenge across the board today. Some people could expect that it's less of a pressing issue because companies are offloading people. If you look at this Schlumberger business consulting data, basically when it comes to petroleum engineers, geoscientists, you can see that there are unfilled positions all over the world. And the thing is, maybe today it's less, but we'll come back for sure. And also industry is trying to address that through improving education, collaboration with education institutions, and also into tapping into the male workforce. Can come back to that in the interest of time. If there are questions, when we talk about Russia, there is 1,000 positions that are not filled in for petroleum engineers and geoscientists. Now, access to finance, and this is my last point. It's major companies do not really see it as a challenge. They say, well, we are great on that. We have a lot of strength there. But actually, when you think about independent companies, which are more and more important, well, this is a challenge for them to actually secure financing. And actually, when you think about the region in question in this panel, so Russia particularly, well, this might be a key competitive advantage if someone is able to provide financing. And we see many of those deals done by the largest commodity trading houses to provide pre-export financing. Another way to provide financing in the, let's say, innovative way, probably more for independent companies, is, for example, vendor financing. Not that popular yet, but people are exploring, how much EPC contractors can help in securing finance. We'll need to be innovative there because EPC obviously also struggling when the activity is lower. So my conclusions are, the winning factors for business today is really providing something that improves efficiency of the big guys in the industry. When you go to a producer, well, you will really win the business if you're able to improve operations of their business. Another one, particularly relevant for Russia and independent companies, is to be able to help provide financing for oil and gas upstream projects. And thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I've got you a bit more time.
you have.
10 minutes.
You are a miracle worker. Dande Robinson, ladies and gentlemen, the miracle worker.
All it means is you're just going hungry, guys. But we're going to just move lunch on for about 20 minutes further on. 20 minutes, half an hour. So lunch will be a bit late. I'm sorry about that, but I think it's more interesting than the lunch.